What is up, Generals? We are back with Ultimate General Civil War. And this is the J&P Rebalance mod, Legendary Confederate Let's Play as we move into the battle at Newport News. Since the last video, it's been about 30 seconds, real time. And hopefully I can upload these both in the course of the same day. So I just wanted to make sure that the camp video was a camp video, and if you didn't really care about the camp stuff or you thought a tutorial's kind of, you didn't need one, right? You can just skip it. So in the last video, we took the army out of the tutorial mission and built this. And because of my points in training, the light colonel is barely sufficient to take a unit over into having 1 star. What that means is, honestly, as long as I don't run out of light colonels, I should basically never have to worry about, having units that don't have stars. We'll see as the campaign progresses if that's actually worth it or not. With that being said, let's go ahead and jump into the battle at Newport. Now, I'm going to turn the mic off, record this, and then play the fight back at 1.5 or double speed with some post-commentary after the fact. So if this is your first time to my channel, this is something I tend to reserve for larger battles, but it'll let me focus on a battle that is annoying how important it is. So we'll leave it at that. Until then, I'll be doing post audio in a couple of seconds as far as you're concerned, so I'll see you then. Okay, so we're back to the day of. Well, this is probably the next day, but so. Well, let's talk a little bit about, so just as an FYI for the viewer, I am, the playback here is at 1.5 speed. Sometimes I do 2x, and I often feel as if 2x is, like, hard to follow. Like even at the slower pace that the Rebalance mod plays at, it's still kind of hard to follow. So I'm going to talk a little bit about like what's happening on the screen and then what's happening in this battle, but I'm also going to talk about what happened in my failed run that I had to sort of re-roll. So my concept of operation going into this battle was essentially that I needed to present a solid line of infantry and make the town inaccessible for the AI. What that meant here is that I needed 3 infantry units. The goal, and Napoleons, because they're just dedicated counter dude guns versus like a 3-inch ordnance or a parrot gun, which is kind of a counter battery gun. And they can do the job of fighting infantry, but they don't really do it as well as maybe another kind of weapon is. So I pull back into the town, and I get lucky that I guess the AI doesn't see me or know what's what or whatever. So I get the whole, basically the whole time, the countdown before the reinforcements show up to just chill out, which is different than when I played this last time around. So I don't know kind of what plays into it. So the concept of operations was to hold the town in the initial wave with my dudes, and then as soon as it was practical, get the Virginia militia that you're going to get in a few in-game minutes here, get them in the town at the very lip of the city and have them do all the grindy fighting or all the dying. And there's kind of 2 reasons for this. One, if you just kind of stand there and trade fire, even if you're trading effectively with my dudes, it's if you stand there and fight with my dudes, you're just taking a lot of casualties for no reason. So the vast majority of the casualties occur in the center because that's where the AI army is focused. And my dream, my goal, my whatever concept of operations was to put my dudes on the wings, have the AI fighting it out in the middle, and then my guys kind of collapsing the flanks in. There's two reasons I did this. One, it's a force preservation a thought process of I want to minimize my casualties and maximize my kills. But two, the AI units that you get in this battle, you got no control over their perks, right? And they've all got Springfield 42s. So you can't rely on them to be terribly effective at shooting. And you can really only rely on them to be effective at standing there. So you see me kind of almost go back into the old battle plan that I've done a couple of times, where I have my dudes maintain their position in the middle because in my head they're committed, and I wait for, and then you have the AI's troopers kind of handle the flanking, and it seems to me that is an inefficient way to do that operation. So in the rebalance mod in particular, the Springfield 42 and unperked units, and especially a lot of these AI allied units, have no stats. Their firearm is 10, their stamina is 8. Like they're the equivalent of unperked Union infantry or something. So that I hate to say this, but you just can't rely on them to do anything except stand there and act as bullet shields. So they just, they stand there and sponge while your troops go off and do all the real soldiering. And I'm not generally a fan of, I'll talk about this some during Manassas as well. I'm not generally a fan of the trope of everyone's incompetent but me. And the fact that I can't rely on my allied troopers to do anything at all except stand there is a little frustrating. But it works to my advantage here in Newport because the AI is also focused on fighting whoever stands between them and the flag. This gives me an opportunity to swing out second and third infantry, whoever's on in the town right now. Second and third. Gives me an opportunity to swing out second and third and have them spend most of the fight on the flanks of the battle, while Ewell and Bartow and the rest of them duke it out at point blank range in the city. So why is that important? The Springfield it's actually a pretty good gun at like point blank range. It's hot garbage. It's absolutely atrocious trash. Beyond the closest of ranges, but so we'll talk about that in a second here. It's utter trash at anything beyond the closest of ranges, but at close range it does really excellent work. And that's kind of my read on the 6-pounder cannon now. Like, it used to be broken as hell in the 1.2 version of this mod, 1.24 version of this mod, and it was too good. And now, now I'm pretty sure like it's one of those never use this unless you can absolutely avoid it kind of situations. So it's interesting kind of how those things shift. So I get a little cutesy with Stewart, pushing him to the north here, and then I don't realize or forget about the fact that the Union brings cavalry to this battle, and so Stewart ends up getting routed pretty quick, which is a shame. So then now you're seeing my troopers kind of working their way out to the wing, first and third infantry on the left and second on the right, and they do pretty good work there. Now I have Evans here on the far left. His goal is simply to shoot Robinson in the rear and maybe try and charge a cannon. That's pretty much it. Like, if Evans does those two things, he's gold as far as I'm concerned. And the reason I wanted to do that is because Robinson needs to be destabilized. If I can get Robinson to back off, then basically first and third infantry have access to the entire Union right flank. There's some cannon. That's a problem, but it's Union 6-pounders or 12-pound howitzers, so I'm not that worried about it. I've got the AI troops in the town fighting it out in the nose-to-nose grindy fighting, which is to say they're the ones doing the dying. And then my guys are on the flanks doing the killing because they actually have rifles and they have leveled stats and they're perked for shooting things and all the reasons that I would want somebody to be on a flank. That's why they're on the flank. So, yeah. Let's talk a little bit about why I had to re-rack the mission. I initially went into this with 2 infantry, 1 larger cav unit, and then 1 unit of 3-inch ordnance guns or 10-pound ordnance guns. If you're watching my series, I think after this battle in Manassas, I'm going to continue to refer to the 10-pound ordnance gun as the 3-inch, because that's what it was referred to in the time. And if I keep on saying 10-pounder, there is a very good chance that one of the two of us, me or you, the viewer, is going to get confused when I start referring to and using large numbers of 10-pound parrots. So the 3-inch ordnance and the 10-pound parrot, it makes it so that if I ever refer to a 10-pounder, you know exactly what I'm talking about. So I'll after Manassas, I'll start kind of separating the two. Anyway, so that battle went terribly. I was able to manage a draw out of it, and there might be a way to turn that into a victory, where if you play KG and that kind of thing. But as much as I liked the addition of my cav unit and the ability to raid in the enemy backfield and the way that I was able to reliably destabilize their artillery, it meant that I had to significantly weaken my foundation or my base to do it. And what that meant is that, how I talk about canceling charges and actually I haven't talked about canceling charges yet. So when the AI charges you, it makes a calculation based on some formula that's in the AI or whatever. And it says, the AI asks itself, do I think I can take this target? Do I think I can charge this successfully? And a lot of what it balances that calculation off is the units that it can see. So the AI does, in fact, follow line of sight rules. So the units that it can see, and while it's charging, if you don't move, if you stand there and wait for it to come, it will only respond to new stimuli if, in the course of charging, it becomes aware of new stimuli. The way that you can get it to cancel a charge is this sort of stutter fallback move that I do, where... So I don't know how you've got your hotkeys set up, but I've got my hotkey where F is for fallback and H is for hold. And then I have my space bar rejiggered to pause. So when an enemy's charging me, if I want to cancel the charge, the target of the charge, I have them fall back for a couple of steps, hold, fall back for a couple of steps, hold, fall back for a couple of steps, hold. And the reason I'm doing that is these changes in the state of the unit that is being charged constantly force the AI into a loop to ask itself, do I or do I not want to keep pressing this charge? Eventually, the AI will typically decide to opt out of the charge if it feels like its chances of successfully completing that charge or being victorious when it gets there have diminished for some reason. Say, for example, that you are so far away so as to render its condition lower than it's comfortable being during the charge, or it discovers that you have more allies, and that kind of thing. So you'll notice that in this version, in this video here, the AI doesn't really charge very often. I think that there was one charge earlier in the battle, and there might be one or two more over the course of the fighting, but the AI doesn't charge much. Now, why is that? The AI won't launch into suicidal charges. The AI won't go and attack a target it doesn't feel like it has any chance of successfully defeating, and it does that. It makes that decision based on weight, the weight of the forces that are arraigned against it. And one of the things it won't charge typically is supported infantry, infantry with cannon, infantry with light elements, etc., so forth and so on, unless it significantly outnumbers them. Anybody else, feel free to correct anything I'm saying if I'm wrong. Panda, anybody else, right? So I'm going off of things that I've observed. I'm going off of simply anecdotal evidence that I've visibly seen myself during the course of play. There's a really good chance I'm missing something. There's a really good chance I don't know how this works. There's a really good chance I've forgotten something, right? So the important point is that when I had 2 infantry, 1 cav, and 3 inchers or 10-pound ordnances, I lacked a critical mass of a solid foundation at my home base to scare the AI into not charging. Even with all the stutter stepping I could come up with, all the ways I could try and cancel the charge, it was not enough. The AI was still convinced, I got this, fam. And they did. I mean, they did. They got into the city 3 times. I had one of my units on the edge of shattering. It was a bad time. And it made Bull Run or Manassas functionally impossible. And I took the cav unit to Manassas too, and they were useful for hunting down enemy artillery in the backfield. Once the map opens up and you get access to Henry Hill and Stewart rolls on the field, him and my cav unit, just kind of like they did here, they roll around the enemy's backfield and scooping up artillery and supply wagons. But again, I lacked that critical mass of counter infantry firepower and block heavy infantry to scare the AI into not charging. That's something I hadn't experienced before in the 1.2 mod. I mean, by Fredericksburg, my division, my core structure was so light on infantry that I had a 25 unit core, and I had 12 units of infantry, and I thought that was almost too much. And I built an army that would do probably okay in 1.24, and I just got my teeth kicked in 1.25. So on the screen, just as a quick update, things are largely progressing as I described them. The Virginia militia is on the edge of the town, trading musket fire at point-blank range with the AI. My dudes are on the flanks, doing one of 2 things, trying to evaporate Robinson or trying to keep the 2 versions of green that are up there on the far left of the Confederate position, trying to keep the 2 versions of green constantly white shielded or you can call it whatever you want. White shield, pinned, suppressed. You get what I'm saying, right? Like not able to function effectively. 1st and 3rd are working on Robinson. 2nd is on the far right of the Confederate position, left of the Union line. They're working on I think this is the second time I forgot about Harrison. It's just a bad play note on my end. Like, it's just me, human error. What are you gonna say? So 2nd's working on Howard and Taylor. Jennifer is working on keeping the 1st version of Hunt busy. So that means there's a 2nd version of Hunt somewhere out there. I got lucky in that the infantry didn't split all that much. There's a very precarious moment happening here where 3rd is wheeling to face Harrison, exposing its rear flank to Robinson. This is very dangerous. And the only way that I'm able to just kind of keep things rolling is watch that morale fucking plummet in the 3rd infantry. I turn 1st infantry to run, and I scream them across the river here, and I put them, I physically body block 3rd infantry's rear with 1st infantry at point blank range with Robinson. I don't like that I'm doing that, but I'm worried about that cav unit, and I need to scare it off. So I do, and then I have an infantry unit and musket range of 2 different, like, really small artillery units. So it mostly works out. But this moment right here on the screen was really touch and go for me, and I was very nervous about how that was going to go. The flow of the battle, however, is going very smoothly. So where my initial playthrough on this battle, I was hanging on a knife's edge the entire battle with the 3-inch ordnance and the cav and everything else. Like, that version of this battle, which I've deleted the recording of, was just teetering on a knife edge the entire time, and I got a draw. I got a board clear, but I lost so much of my army that it was Pyrrhic victory, right? By comparison, I feel like I'm in command the entire battle. I feel confident. I feel comfortable, with the exception of that moment there with 3rd Infantry, and then Robinson and everything else with the cavalry. Like, I feel in control of the battlefield. I feel comfortable. And this is the same build that I went into the test playthrough with. So in the test playthrough that I didn't record any of, I had 3 infantry and 1 unit of Napoleons, and I wanted to shake it up for the recording video and use 2 infantry, 1 cav, and 1 3-inch ordnance. So let's talk about that too. The 3-incher on this particular battle, I would not recommend. It, over the course of the fight, got 800 kills. My Napoleon unit is probably over 1,000 already, and it has been just brutalizing things in canister range. It's another thing. These all work in concert, right? It's a combined arms force. So infantry provides both a physical shield and a solid foundation upon which the rest of the army can successfully function. I talked about this in my recording at Fredericksburg. So if you're new to the channel, if you're new to Fiasco, whatever, this is your first experience with Fiasco, you're not going to know what I'm talking about. I speak at length. I go on random tangents about, military theory, and I place very high levels of emphasis or import on things like recon, information warfare, mobility, or maneuverability. To the point that it got me in trouble, actually, in the my first attempt at the Rebalance series in 1.24 when I was playing Major General. I was placing so much emphasis on mobility, my units were everywhere I needed them to be whenever I needed them to be there, but they couldn't do shit when they got there. And the campaign really started turning around when I placed a greater emphasis on spotting and combat power. So the Napoleon, the combined arms effect here that's working out really well is I've got my blunt infantry with the muskets kind of acting as a shield, and then I have my infantry with long-range rifles and perked for accuracy. I have them kind of working as a bow and arrow. The Napoleons, so they're at a little under 1,200 kills. The Napoleons are like a flail. So if Bartow and Ewell and B are acting as a shield, and the 6-pounders, man, they went from being OP to like useless. Just, replace them as soon as you possibly can. Garbage tier. Maybe not like useless, but I would certainly never waste a unit spot on them if I had any control over it. I would strongly recommend against using 6-pounders. Unequivocally, and I feel confident in that recommendation. Having played with all the 6-pounders here in this battle, and then having played with 8 units of 6-pounders in the course of Second Manassas, they're garbage tier. Use them if the AI gives them to you. Use them as bait. Use them as, something to occupy the space or whatever. But you don't ever waste a unit slot on them. Don't ever waste a single dollar on them. That's for sure. And this is a gun that I spoke very highly of in 1.24, and actually a gun that I was a huge fan of in the vanilla game in the early campaign as a super close range infantry support gun. I think that my recommendation there now goes to the 12-pound howitzer as your cheap infantry support gun. So that's a unit that I think would benefit from the horse artillery perk, because it's already 108% accurate or 106%, whatever, accurate at canister range, and you shouldn't be using 12-pound howitzer anywhere else but canister range. So anywho, this combined arms force is tougher. 3 infantry, 1 artillery is just tougher. It's got a more solid, more beefy front line. There's no finesse. There's no style. There's no fancy shit in this build, and I got too fancy for my own good. So I mean that's why I think it works. Is there's no fancy shit. There's all just solid workhorse units, workhorse infantry, and the Napoleon, a workhorse artillery piece that I've played with it in this battle, and I've played with it in the test game, and I've played with it at First Manassas, which is I've also recorded First Manassas. Man, that gun does work. That gun has, I think, fundamentally replaced the 6-pounder in my favorite infantry gun listing with the balance pass that 1.25 has offered. So there's a lot of important lessons to be taken from my failure to play fancy earlier, and also the success associated with playing boring but effective. And that's that all the fancy shit I think I'm learning, me personally, that all the fancy shit does you no good if you don't have a solid foundation upon which to launch it from. And I've made this point before, and I'm mad at myself for kind of having forgotten it, but it's true. One of my maxims is that infantry advancing without recon is dead infantry. It's harder to provide that recon in this mod without detached skirmishers, but I think it's still a truism. With low spotting, if you don't have the ability to provide some sort of recon element, so in this case it's Stuart and Jennifer in this battle, and then it's going to be me placing an extremely high level of import on recon points, which for new players, that's going to be, you're going to see these little eye icons, like human eyeball icons floating around on maps. Right now, anyway, that's going to be me placing an import on putting something on that so that I can kind of see what's going on. I'm going to develop a light infantry arm. I'm going to develop scouts, all that kind of thing. I'm just not there yet. The second thing, when I talk about mobility, the best guns in the world do you no good if they're in the wrong place. So that's a truism. That's a maxim that I tend to fight by. And I think I'm coining a new maxim based on what I've seen here, and that's, just in the same way, your fancy bullshit won't work without a solid foundation. So, some important takeaways in terms of the battle. I've played it now with a couple of different builds in the 1.25 at legendary mode. I also cannot stress the import of this battle later on in the Manassas battle. Without beating this battle, Manassas felt nigh unbeatable. And with the 7% army size debuff that this battle inflicts, if you're victorious, on the Union army at Manassas, it took a battle from simply unplayable to difficult but certainly manageable, and that's a gigantic differentiation. So usually they treat these side battles as being optional, and I just frankly disagree. They're not optional at all. So I'm going to go ahead and quickly here, I'm going to cut the mic. We're going to drop the day of recording, and then you're going to get a bonus camp video here as I get the army ready for Manassas. So I'll see you guys soon. Okay, we're back. Wow. Just wow. By comparison, this was the D-Day landing, the Normandy landing in terms of like everything working out. Well, I guess the preparation for the D-Day landing. That couldn't have gone better and could not have been more completely different than how my previous attempt went with the cavalry. I think, for me anyway, for my playstyle, the addition of that third unit of infantry is simply irreplaceable on this battle. The Napoleons really did great work as well. So the units here just did wonderful work. Napoleon's very efficient per kill, but everybody else really carried their weight as well. The using kind of the AI troops as meat shields in the town while my troops kind of handled the flank was a great way for me to handle kind of minimizing my casualties. I'm pretty sure Gary Stark was one of the guys that I bought. He made it to full colonel. I think Terry Shaler might have been one of my guys too. I'll be honest, I don't know the rest of them. If Dwayne Liddell or Evans B. I'm pretty sure Palom was one of the AI captains, so we won't get to keep him, but that's life. What did we capture? We got a bunch of Harper's Ferries. That's our 1841s, that's always good. Money, okay. The sharp carbine is fine. Actually, it's okay. It's not terrible. We have enough Springfield 1855s that, as much as I don't like the gun, I'm hard pressed to think of a good reason not to use them. And if the opportunity arises, so yeah. The previous version of this battle was an absolute dumpster fire, which completely just derailed the entire campaign. By comparison, this seems to have gone really well. We get that career point that's vital. We get the reputation boost. And the train is just now coming by my apartment. So I'm going to go ahead and cut the audio here, and I will see you guys on the camp screen before first Manassas. This is Fiasco signing out. Okay, and now we're back to the mini camp screen. Sorry for jumping you guys around like crazy. All right, so let's take a look at what I decided to do. So the first thing that I do is, this is something that I've kind of picked up from Panda, watching him play, is I spend $5,000, give or take, on veterans for a unit, and then I put the rest in rookies, and I accept that I'm going to lose some stats as part of that process. Now, the reason that I do this is, actually, I don't know explicitly why Panda does it, but or honestly even how he kind of landed on $5,000 as the appropriate number. But what I like that it does is, in the case of the prep here, it cost me $15,000 to preserve some of the stats gained for these units, which is a minimal expense that I don't really feel bad about making. $15,000 is not the end of the world when you have the kind of budgets you do in this game. By the time that I got done with the last campaign in Fredericksburg, I had $500,000 just sitting around gathering dust. So with the thought process in my mind that better troops take fewer casualties, let's spread the recon, spread the experience around. And so let's take a look at the screen really quick. I'll talk about that in a second. So you get 5 unit slots going into Manassas, and I didn't want to spend the perk on AO just to expand the size of my division to 5 units. And I decided to create another division and have that one be earmarked exclusively for artillery. But I noticed something as I was going through, and that's the command stat for second division's units was not very good. And now I'm looking at, I'm debating bringing in the Springfield 55, which I don't like because it's at max range. It's only 20% accurate. I don't like it. I'm looking at what other guns I want to pick up. And I'm debating still what unit I want to bring for Manassas. Now, spoiler alert, I end up developing a second artillery unit, and I'll be honest, I forget kind of the process of what I do here. Because I'm debating, I spend a lot of time going back and forth on making a skirmisher unit that has these 1856 Enfields. I debate it because they're like a poor man's skirmisher. They're kind of like the old Sharps units that would be firing a long rifle. I debate making a cav unit with Cookin Brothers, and the problem with these two units is the cav unit's interesting, but the Cookin Brothers, they're not enough. They don't do enough. They don't reach out and touch somebody, and I'm primarily concerned that in the opening part of the battle, I need to counter battery down the artillery of the Union across the river. And I can't do that with Napoleons. So another thing I notice here is I can't have a big enough battery without suffering a significant efficiency penalty. So I'm kind of thinking in my head, like, how do I solve this problem? And I realized that I debate buying a kernel, but that's really expensive. I don't want to do it. I realized that my issue is that Dwayne Deering here is just bad. He's fine, right? But he's just not leveled up enough to do the job. So I'm kind of thinking, like, okay, well, how do I get a better kernel to fill the second division slot? Or do I maybe just, like, suck it up and put first Napoleons up in first division and then just have, Haskell down here in the second division suck? And ultimately I realized that the 28 rep isn't, it's not giving me any morale effects. So 28 or 24 doesn't make a difference. I buy James Archer, drop him in the division commander slot, and I take a look and see if anybody else is better for the role. No, they're not. James Archer's the guy. So I put James Archer in the division commander spot, and that frees up the existing colonel, whatever his name is, Deering,
Yes, sir.
to command the new artillery unit, 2nd Ordnance. And Deering's command as a rank of colonel is high enough that I can pump the gun up to 13 guns and not suffer an efficiency penalty associated with the unit size. So I'm feeling really good about this design for the Army going into First Manassas. Why? Because I just had reinforced for me pretty strongly at Newport the lesson of leave your fancy shit at home until you have a solid base from which to operate. So 3 infantry at 1,250 men, armed with the best rifles I can afford, 2 artillery, 1 counter infantry, 1 general purpose, which is what the ordnance unit is. And that's the build. I'm ultimately going to end up pushing these units up to 1,300 men as kind of a buffer for inevitable casualties. That works out really well, and we'll talk about that again at Manassas. So I made it through the entirety of the Major General campaign at 1,250, and I have a strong suspicion the AI just fights real hard at Legendary. They are tenacious. They just stand there and they take it. So I think I've got to build some of these units bigger and beefier. I've got to build a big size army, 1,500, 1,600 man brigades, that kind of thing. Or I'm just, I need the ability to stand there and fight, and have enough men to fight effectively at the end of a battle. And you know what? I think Something Compass said that during his Union playthrough as well, is you need enough men to fight towards the end of the battle. So that's it. We're going to get ready for Manassas, and we'll see you guys in the next one. This is Fiasco signing out.